Army, Navy. That's all you need to say. No college football game can match this rivalry when it comes to history, pageantry, all of it. The cadets and the midshipmen marching into the stadium for a game that defines the idea of you can throw out the record books. This episode of Rivalries is presented by Allstate. Army-Navy is about so much more than just a college football game. This game on this day, to so many, is about what it means to be an American. A chance to watch the best and the brightest in what is, for so many, their last moment in a football uniform before they trade it in for the uniform of our nation. My father, Dr. Jerry McGee, officiated 400 college football games, including Rose Bowls, Orange Bowls, and a BCS national championship. But if you ask him what game he could go back and experience again, his answer is always the same: Army-Navy. He worked two of them, including December 7th, 1991, the 50th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. Why does he say that? Because he still gets chills when he thinks about the spectacle of America's game, the entrances of the middies and cadets, the prisoner exchange, where 7 students from each academy who have spent time living on the other campus are returned. The chants of Beat Army answered just as loudly with Beat Navy. The television audience of active service members watching from bases and ships around the globe. And then the postgame, as each team stands before their classmates to lead them in the alma mater, one fulfilling their stated year-long goal of having won the game and earning the honor of singing second. No sporting event in this nation can surpass Army-Navy when it comes to traditions that have been grown and nurtured over the last 135 years. Mind you, this is a rivalry that predates the football helmet. It wasn't until the 1893 matchup when Navy Admiral Bull Reeves put on one of the very first examples, 41 years before he made the cover of Time magazine for a pioneering career in carrier aviation. But back in 1890, when the United States Military Academy and the United States Naval Academy first played ball, the headgear was limited to knit caps. The middies challenged the cadets for a game in West Point, New York. What was Army's first ever football game was Navy's 7th of that season, and the result was embarrassing, as Navy beat Army right in the middle of campus, 24-0. 1 year later, though, Army got its revenge in Annapolis. In the years since, the contest they call America's Game has been played from West Point and Annapolis to Philadelphia and Baltimore to Foxborough in New Jersey, even the Rose Bowl, Yankee Stadium, the Polo Grounds, and Washington, D.C. In this series, played by athletes literally trained to find every strategic advantage on the battlefield, has been nip and tuck on the football field. After 125 games, Navy leads with 63 wins to Army's 55, along with 7 ties. But at the 110-year mark, the series was dead even. Navy widened the margin by winning a record 14 in a row from 2002 to 2015. But in typical ground and pound tank attack fashion, Army has responded with 6 victories over the last 9 years, including the instantly legendary 17-11 goal line stand of 2023. In fact, 10 times over the last 14 years, America's game has been decided by a touchdown or less. Sometimes they play for the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, but that is an Air Force invention, and the Falcons have won most all of them. More often, this series is about keeping the other side on its toes, like when Navy stole that trophy in 2019 and displayed it at noon meal. Or take Army introducing its mule mascot as a counter to Navy's goat. Just listen to the great Keith Jackson summing up all that mischief back in 1991.
Navy has been able to steal the Army mules the first time in history. They have kidnapped the first captain of the Corps of Cadets. They have bombarded an Army assembly with ping pong balls and propaganda.
But the Army Corps of Cadets want to remind everybody, but that's the first time that the mules have ever been stolen. They've stolen the Navy goat quite a few times, Keith.
That's great.
So, what stands out as the greatest moments in this college football's greatest rivalry? Much like attempting to list the American heroes who have witnessed this game in person, that feels like an impossible task. A century ago, as college football became a national obsession, Army-Navy routinely had national title implications. Like 1926, when the game was held in Chicago for the dedication of Soldier Field. Navy was undefeated. Army had lost only to Knute Rockne's Notre Dame. More than 100,000 fans watched the teams fight to a 21-21 tie, resulting in a Navy national championship. In the 1940s, while countless Army and Navy graduates were changing the course of history on the front lines of World War II in Europe and the Pacific, their alma maters were making college football history. In 1944 and 45, they entered the game ranked 1-2. Army won both games to cap off back-to-back undefeated national championship seasons. The following year was the final for Doc Blanchard and Glenn Davis, Army's Heisman Trophy winning backfield mates known as Mr. Inside and Mr. Outside. With the chance to tie, Navy head coach Tom Hamilton chose instead to run a play for the win, but the clock ran out on fourth down. When asked why he didn't attempt a field goal, Hamilton penned one of the most famous quotes in sports history: "A tie is like kissing your sister." In 1963, the game was delayed after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, a Navy veteran. The second-ranked midshipmen held off a final furious Army drive to win the game, clinch a Cotton Bowl berth, and cement the legacy of quarterback and Heisman Trophy winner Roger Staubach, forever known as Captain America. Fun fact, this game also marked the debut of instant replay on TV. The rivalry's win totals remained just about deadlocked all the way into the new millennium, but 2016 represented one of the sweetest victories of all. That's when Army ended that lopsided 14-year stretch of Navy dominance thanks to 316 rushing yards. And just to remind you how averse the service academies can be to the forward pass, that total was actually under the 339 rushing yards the cadets averaged per game that season. An emphasis on the ground game does not cost this series its excitement. Know who's run for more touchdowns than any player in FBS history? That would be Navy quarterback Keenan Reynolds, who showed he could beat you with his arm too, with touchdowns of 50-plus yards both through the air and on the ground in the 2015 game. Not only did this help clinch double-digit wins for the midshipmen, but also made Reynolds the only Navy QB to beat Army 4 times. On the Army side, let's highlight the intensity of being on the field with eternal bragging rights on the line. Like, say, in 2022, when linebacker Calvin Crummy forced a Navy fumble on a would-be touchdown play in double overtime, setting up a Black Knights field goal and the only walk-off win in Army-Navy history. Played on the second Saturday in December each year since 2009, after conference championship games but before the college football playoff, it is a game that deserves to have the spotlight to itself. College Game Day has made the trip 8 times, made all the more memorable by Lee Corso's assistant coaching stint at Navy in the mid-60s.
No other teams really belong to this country.
At 2 institutions where the idea of the uniform represents something deeper, they always save something special in that department for each other. America's game, without any doubt. And to those who have played in it, all of whom went on to serve their nation, we, the college football fans of America, salute you.